Greetings from Dr. Gharge. On behalf of the Department of English, I welcome all of you in this online lecture on adaptation as interpretation. Actually, we have seen earlier the adaptation term, its perspectives and theories. Adaptation, which is considered by Linda Hutcheon, and she has formed her theory. What is adaptation? The dictionary meaning of the term adaptation is an adjustment, an alteration, making something suitable, a reshaping, and a remaking. Adaptation, thus, is a remake of something, but not necessarily a faithful copy of it. Adapting is transferring something from one medium to another. Adaptation is a process of change to suit the adapter's purpose. If I find something worth adapting, it means I find something worth presenting in my angle. And opinions vary as to what adaptation is. The critics like and theorists like Hutcheon points out that it is not inferior. She wonders how is it that most of the prestigious awards have been backed by film adaptations. So adaptations are many times superior to the original. What makes them so? Adaptation, as we have seen, is a remaking or reshaping of the original piece of literature. A person adapts something because he sees something worth presenting in it. In other words, it is what and how the adapter saw it. It is his or her interpretation. The film under our study, Angur, it is an adaptation of Shakespeare's play, The Comedy of Errors. This is not the only adaptation of the play on Indian screen. While searching internet, it was found that undoubtedly Angur is modeled on Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors, which in itself is an adaptation of Menechmi, a play by Plautus. But it is not a direct adaptation. The film is a remake of another Hindi film, Beduni Char, which in turn is based on Bengali film Bhranti Bilas, which is a remake of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar's novel of the same name, and this novel is modeled on Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors. See here how many adaptations are here only on the play of that Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors. One by one, frequently in different periods, all these adaptations are done by various adapters. The Comedy of Errors, if we study each of these adaptations, we will notice that each of the adapter has seen something worthy of adaptation in the play. The journey can be represented as the Comedy of Errors or Bhranti Bilas or its Bengali film, Beduni Char Hindi film, Angur Hindi film. Each person has adapted it with his or her own additions and subtractions because that is how he or she saw it. In other words, they are all interpretations of Shakespeare's play and each one is different. So we need to understand what is interpretation or adaptation as interpretation. Interpretation is an act of interpreting something as expressed in an artistic performance. The adaptations of stage musicals, it is different, right? Stage musicals in which music is prominent from previously existing source material as acts of cultural translation operating through intricately interwoven intertexts of narrative meaning in myths, folk tales, fairy tales, prose fiction, poetry, and films across a wide spectrum of cultures and languages. One of the key questions problematized is the common sense of idea of fidelity to the original source material. Fidelity to the original source material. And it is logically impossible. See here, it is not possible in the adaptation that you should be faithful with the original source because adaptation to be faithful to its source as all adaptation involves interpretative decisions so that even the simplest translation from one medium to another is a hermeneutic act. Let me think about adaptations of sources for the musical stage as interpretations. So, definition of the term interpret or interpretation. Interpretation is a noun and it is derived from the verb to interpret. The term interpret means explain the meaning of or elucidate or unfold or translate into intelligible and familiar form, and therefore interpretation is a sense of or explanation given by the interpreter. When a person interprets, he or she presents the meaning as he or she sees in the original source. There is a touch of artistic performance in it. There are a number of definitions of interpretation. Our concern is with adaptation. So let us limit ourselves to the definition in that angle. So musicals which are quite popular and which are taken from other sources. The examples are here listed. Aladdin, Carbet, Chicago, Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, Honeymoon in Vegas, Kingly Boots, Les Miserables, The Lion King, Matilda, The Phantom of the Opera, and so many. So we have to find out the reason why these are derived from other sources. The reason why so many classic novels or dramas have been filmed more than once is that many of them are in the public domain. This is most important. Many of them are in public domain, and that's why there is no necessity of licensing the fees which are required. The another reason behind that is they have title recognition. The original sources have the title recognition. Already they are the master plots. Already they are well known. They are quite popular among the audience or the readers. So this is most important factor for the adaptation. Another outstanding feature of those literary works are their well delineated, memorable characters and the often dramatic way they interact, which may be even more attractive to adapters in the area of theatre and film than the overarching themes of the novel in question. So we have to understand the reasons behind the adaptation. Interpretation. See this adaptation as interpretation. Interpretation is an act of interpreting something and as expressed in an artistic performance. This is most important, artistic performance. It when we adapt a book, whether the play or the novel, for the film or for TV serial, or animation video, it is an attempt of the adapter to present the book as he or she sees it. Sees it, that is, what is the interpretation done by the interpreter. So the famous film The Birds, which was directed by Alfred Hitchcock, is based on the story of the same name by Daphne du Maurier. It is a thriller that loosely adapts the original story and creates a new interpretation of the matter. If we read the original story and compare it to the film, we can easily notice that it has been differently interpreted. You can also compare Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors and Angur, the film directed by Gulzar. Even Bengali film or Hindi film, if we compare and comparison with The Comedy of Errors, definitely we can understand there are differences, but the skeleton of the theme, main theme that has been source that has been used by the adapters. So interpretation is different for every adapter, because of interpretation depends upon the adapter. We can identify the adaptation as interpretation definitely with different moods, approaches, attitudes, cultures, countries, audience. So many there are responsible factor. So if Linda Hachian, who has given her perspectives, different perspectives in which she has stated it is the process of creation. It is a creation, not recreation. Definitely, though it is adapted, yet there is something new. It is transcreated by the adapter, and it is made popular among the audience due to the different electronic media we have today, and it is the film. So, may we consider it adaptation as interpretation? This brings us to the question, and the answer that we can clarify here. Till the advent of movies, literature was something to be read and enjoyed individually. See this? As earlier I have explained to you, drama which was considered to be performed. See this? Since long years, even Sophocles, who had written the plays which were for the performance, not actually he expected to be read, but the novels and the other forms of literature which are expected to be read. See this? This is the difference. Similarly, here the films are directed and produced only for to be seen. See, to be seen by the audience, and it should be performed by the actors and the actress. So the advent of movies, before that, literature was something to be read and enjoyed individually, or in some cases collectively. Play was the only thing that unfolded before many through its presentation on the stage. People had to visualize the picture presented in the books using their mind's eyes. A short story, for example, presenting the sad tale of the poor orphan girl might move one to pity and the other might react with anger to the relatives who abandoned the orphan. Simple example is here, orphan girl. Some would pity on her condition, some would become angry because of everybody's interpretation is different. Why do we pity? Simple example, when the beggars are begging, everybody doesn't like, but somebody offers uh, either 1 or 2 rupees coin. It is there is pity for the beggar. But instead of offering the pity for them, instead of that, if you offer something different, the message, or even if we try to persuade such people for to do something, the hard work, then there will be the problem of begging will be solved. But everybody's approach is different. Everybody's interpretation is different of any event or any book or any drama or whatever the form of the literature. Each person here is interpreting differently. When movies arrived on the horizon, men found another way of entertainment. So, the second function of the literature to entertain, definitely it is also the function of film, the fine art. The entertainment became audiovisual, live as well as lively. What does a man do when he sees a film on the screen in the theater? He sees the story as visualized by the filmmaker, the director, and the photographer, along with the actors and the music director. The writer either writes a fresh story or uses some already available material as the story source of his film. That is, there is the adaptation. It is a story which is a borrowed. See the word used here. It is an adaptation. Undoubtedly, it is adaptation. But this adaptation is not as it is. There is a difference, and this difference makes the audience take it as new. What he does is similar to what a reader does while reading a poem or a story or a novel or a play, as the reader interprets the story in his own way and angle. Such type of the interpretation of a producer and the director and the entire staff making the film tries to interpret the story, and it is different from the original source. It is going to happen whenever there is the adaptation. So if we can see the Hindi films where there are the adaptations, The Crime and Punishment, it's a novel by Russian novelist Dostoevsky. It's a source taken by the Marathi director for the film like Devta. See, when we observe the film Devta, we do not relate with that Dostoevsky's Russian culture or Russian story or Russian characters. Not at all. We have Marathi culture. We have the Marathi film, and with this Marathi approach and the angle and everything is Marathi. It doesn't look like Russian. This is the difference. This is not similar, or the writer is not, or producer is not very much grateful with each other by keeping the original source as it is. So, adaptation of a book into a film by many, when we observe Mahabharata and Ramayana, it also suggests us definitely there are such type of the adaptations for the TV serials and the films and so many other forms of the fine arts. So Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, it is also adapted for the film and the TV production. Similarly, so many novels recently, as we have in our syllabus, uh, Three Idiots, the Hindi film, which is adapted by Chetan Bhagat's 5 point something. There is a difference between all these, the original source and the films, because of the interpretation done by the writer, done by the producer, director, actors, and whatever the whole team of the film. So the novel was adapted into a film, which is whether the video film or an animation film, whatever it is, in each case different interpretation of the story will be there in the adaptation. Thus, adaptation is interpretation. However, as interpretation, each production differs from the other. The film under our study, Angur, has been, as we have seen, adapted several times into films in many languages, and each adaptation has been seen as an independent creation as well as independent interpretation. So, Angur is Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors in Bollywood style. The director had adapted the original story in modern Indian situation and has affected the necessary changes. Gulzar's own interpretation is there. Yes, definitely you will get, it is the interpretation of Gulzar and performed by Sanjeev Kumar and Deven Verma with Mosmi Chatterjee. And definitely you will get the idea there is difference and also the similarity in both the original text and the film which is produced by Gulzar. With these words, I would like to say that adaptation is clearly the interpretation of the interpreter or the adapter. With these words, I would like to thank you and conclude here. Thank you.